CEO Millionaire uses his secretary, but regrets when she becomes more powerful. Welcome to Alcot Stories. Hello, wonderful viewers. This is Alcot Stories, and I want to take a heartfelt moment to welcome both my new and longtime supporters. Your love, your encouragement, and your presence mean the world to me. Every time you watch, like, and comment, you're not just supporting this channel, you're becoming a part of a beautiful storytelling family. May your days be filled with love, joy, and endless blessings. May you find a strength in difficult moments and light in the darkest days. May your heart always be surrounded by people who cherish and respect you. And above all, may happiness follow you wherever you go. I would love to hear from you. What is the most powerful love story you have ever experienced or heard? Share it in the comments. I read every single one of them. Thank you for being here. Keep watching, keep supporting, and together let's create stories that touch hearts and inspire souls. Much love, Alcott Stories sparkles. Maya Brooks had always been a woman of ambition. From the moment she stepped into the towering glass skyscraper of Carter Enterprises, she knew she was entering a world dominated by power, wealth, and ruthless competition. But Maya was not intimidated. She had fought her way through life, determined to build a career that would make her stand out. With her sharp mind, flawless professionalism, and undeniable charm, she quickly became the most efficient secretary Damian Carter had ever worked with. Damian Carter, a 30-year-old billionaire CEO, was a man known for his intelligence, confidence, and an almost unreachable aura of authority. He was the type of man who never repeated himself, who expected perfection at all times, and who had no time for distractions, especially not in the form of a secretary. To him, Maya was just another employee when she first joined his company. But as weeks passed, something about her began to catch his attention. Maya was unlike the many women who had come and gone in his life. She was brilliant, hardworking, and fiercely independent. She never fawned over him like other women did. She never sought his attention or played games to impress him. Instead, she handled every task with quiet confidence, proving that she was indispensable. No matter how chaotic his schedule got, Maya had everything under control. Meetings were arranged flawlessly, deals were executed without a hitch, and problems were solved before they even reached his desk. At first, Damien dismissed his growing admiration for her as simple professional respect. But the more time he spent around her, the harder it became to ignore the way his eyes followed her movements, the way her voice lingered in his mind long after she had left his office. There was something about her presence that was calming, yet intoxicating. He told himself it was just curiosity, nothing more. Maya, on the other hand, had never been the kind of woman to mix business with emotions. She was here to build her career, not to fall for her boss. But Damian Carter was not an ordinary man. His deep, commanding voice, the way he exuded power with every step, and the rare moments when he let his guard down, all of it slowly started to affect her in ways she hadn't expected. She knew it was dangerous, foolish even, to let herself feel anything for a man like him. And yet her heart had already begun to betray her. Late nights at the office became a silent battlefield of stolen glances and unspoken words. Damien would catch himself watching her for too long, only to force himself to look away. Maya would feel her pulse quicken when he stood too close. His scent, a mix of expensive cologne and raw masculinity, making it impossible to think straight. Neither of them acknowledged what was happening, but the tension between them grew stronger with each passing day. Maya tried to convince herself that she was imagining things, that Damian Carter would never look at her as anything more than an employee. But deep down she felt it, the shift in the air whenever they were alone, the intensity in his gaze when he thought she wasn't looking. Damian, however, was a man who controlled every aspect of his life. He had spent years building his empire, keeping emotions at bay because he believed they only led to weakness. But with Maya, he was starting to lose control, and that was something he couldn't afford. For now they remained in a dangerous balance. Boss and secretary, both pretending that nothing was happening between them. But something had already begun, a spark that neither of them could put out. And soon that spark would ignite into something that neither of them would be able to stop. Unknowingly, they were walking toward a love that would change everything. but also toward a betrayal that would leave them shattered. Damian Carter had always been a man of control. He built his empire with ruthless precision, never allowing distractions to cloud his judgment. To him, emotions were a liability, and love was the greatest weakness of all. He had seen powerful men fall apart because of it, losing focus, losing their edge. And yet here he was, unable to take his mind off his secretary. Maya Brooks was becoming a problem, a beautiful, intoxicating problem. No matter how much he tried to ignore it, his attraction to her grew stronger every day. He told himself it was nothing, just a passing distraction, a simple fascination with a woman who carried herself with grace and quiet confidence. But deep down, he knew better. This wasn't just curiosity, it was desire. And desire was dangerous. Every time Maya walked into his office, his pulse quickened. He memorized the way she moved, the way her soft curls framed her face, the way her brown skin glowed under the office lights. It frustrated him, how easily she got under his skin. He could have any woman he wanted. Women threw themselves at him all the time. But Maya was different. She wasn't trying to impress him. She wasn't interested in his wealth or power, and that only made him want her more. But he couldn't cross that line. Not with her. Or so he thought. A night that changed everything. The night of the Carter Enterprises business party was supposed to be like any other corporate event. Formal, controlled, professional. Damian attended, dressed in his usual perfectly tailored black suit, greeting investors, making strategic conversations. Maya, as always, was at his side, poised, elegant, her fitted black dress complementing her figure in a way that made it impossible for him to look away. He hated how much he noticed her. The curve of her lips when she smiled politely at guests, the way her perfume lingered in the air, driving him insane. As the night wore on, Damian found himself watching her more than he should have. He told himself it was because she was his secretary, his most trusted employee. But when she laughed at something a client said, tilting her head back slightly, exposing the smooth line of her neck, something inside him snapped. He wanted her. After the party ended, Maya was gathering some documents in his private lounge when Damian entered. The room was dimly lit, the hum of the city outside filling the silence between them. He watched her, feeling an unfamiliar tightness in his chest. She looked up and met his gaze. Something shifted in the air. Neither of them spoke, but the tension between them crackled like fire. Damian took a step closer, his eyes dark with an emotion he refused to name. "You were amazing tonight," he said, his voice lower than usual. Maya swallowed, her breath catching. "Just doing my job." But it wasn't just that. They both knew it. The silence stretched between them, thick and electric. And then it happened. Damian reached out, his fingers brushing against her arm. Light, hesitant. It was the first time he had ever touched her like that. And when she didn't pull away, when she looked up at him with those deep brown eyes that had been haunting his thoughts for months, he lost control. Without thinking, without planning, he kissed her. It was supposed to be brief, just a stolen moment of weakness. But the second their lips met, everything changed. Maya gasped softly, but she didn't push him away. Instead, she melted into him, her hands resting on his chest as he pulled her closer. Damian felt a rush of something he couldn't define, something deeper than just attraction, need, desire, possession. The kiss deepened, becoming desperate, dangerous. His hands slid to her waist, gripping her as if letting go wasn't an option. He felt her shiver under his touch, heard the soft sigh that escaped her lips, and it nearly broke him. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathless, shaken. Maya looked at him, her eyes filled with emotions she didn't dare voice. "Damian," she whispered, as if unsure of what had just happened. He took a step back, running a hand through his hair. He had crossed the line he swore he'd never cross. But it was too late. From that moment on, there was no turning back. Their relationship had shifted, from professional to something dangerously intimate. And Damian, the man who had always believed love was a weakness, was about to learn just how powerful it could be, and how destructive. Maya had never felt this kind of happiness before. Every stolen moment with Damian made her believe in love, in the fairy tale she had once thought impossible. She dreamed of a future where they wouldn't have to hide, where she could proudly stand beside him, not just as his secretary, not as his secret lover, but as his woman. But dreams have a way of turning into nightmares. Because the moment Olivia Kingston walked into their world, everything began to crumble. A woman of power and privilege. Olivia Kingston was the kind of woman who turned heads effortlessly. She was born into wealth, the only daughter of Richard Kingston, a business tycoon who controlled industries that stretched across continents. She was rich, glamorous, and untouchable. And most importantly, she was exactly the kind of woman society expected Damian Carter to be with. She had been away in Europe for years, living a life of luxury, but now she was back in New York and her target was clear. Damian. The first meeting. Maya first saw Olivia at an exclusive gala, one of the high-profile business events Damian attended regularly. Maya had accompanied him, as always, standing by his side in a stunning deep blue gown, feeling like she finally belonged in his world. But then Olivia arrived. She was a vision of perfection, draped in a white satin dress that hugged her body in all the right places. Her blonde hair cascaded in waves, her diamond necklace shimmering under the chandelier lights. The moment she stepped into the room, conversations hushed, and all eyes turned to her, including Damian's. Maya's heart clenched as she watched his gaze linger. The introductions were swift but meaningful. Olivia smiled, her red lips curving with an air of confidence. "Damian Carter," she purred, extending her hand. "It's been too long." Maya expected Damian to give a formal nod and move on. Instead, he smiled. A real, genuine smile. The kind Maya rarely saw. "Olivia Kingston," he murmured, taking her hand. "Didn't think you'd return." "Oh, but I have," Olivia said, her eyes flickering with something unreadable. "And I must say, you've built quite an empire in my absence." Maya stood there feeling invisible. She wasn't prepared for what happened next. A shift in Damian. Over the following weeks, things changed. Damian still wanted Maya. Their nights were still filled with passion. His touch still burned against her skin, and his lips still whispered promises. But there was a distance growing between them. It started small, missed calls, shorter meetings, less time spent alone together. Then there were the rumors. Damian and Olivia were seen together at exclusive lunches, private business meetings, and high society gatherings. Photos of them began circulating in magazines. Billionaire Damian Carter spotted with heiress Olivia Kingston, New York's newest power couple? Maya's stomach twisted every time she saw those headlines. She tried to ignore it. She told herself she was overreacting. Damian was a powerful man. He had to keep up appearances in business. Olivia was just another part of that world. But then one night she waited for him in his penthouse, as she always did. And he didn't come. Hours passed. Midnight turned into dawn. And when she finally saw the morning news, she felt her heart shatter. There it was, a photograph of Damian and Olivia leaving an exclusive restaurant. Damian's hand was resting on Olivia's lower back, his expression unreadable. Maya stared at the image, her breath shallow. For the first time since she had fallen for Damian Carter, doubt crept into her heart. Was she really the only woman in his life? Or had she just been a beautiful distraction until someone better came along? A dangerous realization. Maya refused to confront Damian at first. She told herself she would wait for him to explain. But as the days passed, his excuses became more frequent. "I'm caught up in business deals, Maya. I'll make it up to you, I promise. Olivia is just a business connection. She means nothing to me." But if that were true, why did he spend so much time with her? Why did Maya feel like she was being pushed into the shadows while Olivia stepped into the spotlight? One evening, Maya finally gathered the courage to ask the question that had been haunting her. "Damian," she whispered as they lay in bed, his arm lazily draped over her waist. "What is Olivia to you?" She felt his body tense. A long silence followed before he sighed. "She's someone I have to be seen with." Maya turned to face him, searching his face. "Why?" Damian ran a hand through his hair. "Because she's powerful, Maya. Marrying her would strengthen my empire. My board members are already pushing the idea. Maya felt a sharp stab of betrayal. And what about us? Damian hesitated. That hesitation broke her heart. He finally met her eyes. You mean everything to me. But for the first time, Maya wasn't sure if she believed him. She had given Damian her heart, her trust, her soul. But if he was willing to let Olivia Kingston into his life, even for business, where did that leave her? Maya had always believed love was enough. But maybe in Damian's world, love was never meant to last. Maya had always believed in loyalty. She had built her life around it. Loyalty to her job, to her values, and most of all, to Damian Carter. But now that belief was slowly crumbling before her eyes. A man who changed overnight. At first, she ignored the small changes. Damian used to pull her close after long meetings, whispering how much he needed her. Now he barely touched her. His texts became short, emotionless. The passionate nights they once shared became rushed, as if he was just fulfilling an obligation. Then he stopped calling her baby. It seemed like a minor detail, but to Maya it was everything. He used to say it with warmth, affection. Now when he spoke to her, it was just her name. Maya, handle this report. Maya, I'll be out for the evening. Maya, I need space. Space? From what? From her. From the woman who had given him everything? She tried to brush it off, telling herself it was just stress. But the uneasiness in her heart grew stronger every day. The signs were always there. It wasn't just his behavior, it was the whispers. People in the office had stopped looking at her the same way. Some of the female employees who once envied her now looked at her with pity. The men exchanged glances whenever she walked by, their voices dropping to hushed murmurs. Then there were the news articles. It started with subtle headlines. CEO Damian Carter and Olivia Kingston, business partners or something more. Maya laughed it off. She told herself it was just the media doing what they always did, spreading lies. But then, the headlines changed. The future Mrs. Carter, Olivia Kingston, and Damian Carter spark engagement rumors. Her heart stopped. It wasn't just the words. It was the picture attached to it. The picture that shattered her world. Maya sat in her office, scrolling through the news, praying it was a mistake. And then she saw it. A high-definition image of Damian and Olivia standing close at an exclusive gala. Olivia was dressed in a sleek black gown, her fingers resting on Damian's chest as she laughed. But it wasn't just the pose that hurt Maya. It was Damian's expression. The man who once held Maya like she was his entire world was now smiling at Olivia like she was the only woman who mattered. The caption underneath was like a knife to her heart. Olivia Kingston, the future Mrs. Carter? Maya couldn't breathe. Her fingers trembled as she stared at the screen, reading the words over and over. This wasn't real. Damian wouldn't do this to her. Would he? The devastating confirmation. Maya needed answers. That night, she waited for Damian in his penthouse. She sat in the dimly lit living room, staring at the door, her heart pounding. The clock ticked. Midnight. 1 a.m. 2 a.m. Finally, the door opened. Damian stepped inside, looking exhausted. His tie was loosened, his hair slightly tousled, and he smelled like her, like Olivia. Maya's stomach twisted. He barely acknowledged her as he walked past. Damian, her voice came out strained, desperate. Where were you? He paused but didn't turn to face her. I told you, I had a business event. Maya clenched her fists. With Olivia? Silence. That was all the answer she needed. The moment everything broke. She got up slowly, her breath uneven. Tell me the truth, she whispered. Are you in love with her? Damian sighed, rubbing his forehead. Maya, don't do this. I need to know, her voice cracked. Am I just a secret you're ready to leave behind? His eyes finally met hers, but there was no warmth, no remorse, just cold, painful honesty. I don't know what you want me to say, he muttered. Maya felt something inside her snap. After everything, after all the love she gave him, this was how he repaid her. Her vision blurred with tears, but she refused to let them fall. She wouldn't cry for him. Not now. She took a shaky breath, lifting her chin. Then let me say it for you, she whispered. You never loved me. Damian flinched slightly, but he didn't deny it. That was all Maya needed to know. Her love had been real. Her devotion had been pure. But Damian Carter, he had never been worthy of it. Maya stood in Damian's penthouse, her heart pounding against her ribs. The air was thick with tension, a suffocating silence between them. She had spent years by his side, believing she was special to him, but tonight all those illusions came crashing down. She had seen the headlines, the picture of him and Olivia, the way he smiled at the other woman, a smile he hadn't given Maya in weeks. Her fingers curled into fists. She needed answers, demanding the truth. Say it, Damian. Maya's voice trembled, but her eyes burned with fury. Tell me the truth. Damian sighed, running a hand through his hair. He looked tired, annoyed even. Maya, you're overreacting, he muttered. The media exaggerates everything. She let out a hollow laugh. Overreacting? Was he really going to lie to her face? Don't play games with me, she snapped. Are you with Olivia? His jaw tightened. It's complicated. Maya felt a sharp pang in her chest. Complicated. That single word told her everything. She had been foolish to think she meant something to him. Damian sighed again, as if this entire conversation bored him. Look, Olivia is good for business. Her family's influence. I don't care about business, Maya cut him off, her voice shaking. I care about the truth. Are you in love with her? For the first time, Damian hesitated. His silence was a dagger straight to her heart. The coldest words. You're just my secretary, Maya. The words cut through her like a blade. Damian's expression was unreadable, but his voice was firm, emotionless. You knew this would never last. Maya's breath caught in her throat. Just his secretary, the same man who once held her in his arms, whispered sweet promises, made her believe she was irreplaceable, was now looking at her like she was nothing, like she had been nothing all along. Her fingers trembled as she clenched them at her sides. So, that's it, she whispered. I was just a temporary distraction? Damian didn't answer. He didn't even look guilty. Maya swallowed the lump in her throat. She refused to let him see her break. The moment she walked away slowly, she straightened her spine, forcing herself to breathe. I should have known, she murmured. Men like you never change. Damian frowned. Maya? No. She shook her head, stepping back, away from him, away from this pain. You don't get to say my name like it means something anymore. His lips parted slightly, but Maya didn't wait to hear what excuse he had next. Instead, she reached into her purse, pulled out an envelope, and threw it onto the glass table. Damian glanced at it. What's this? My resignation, Maya said quietly. I'm done. Something flickered in his eyes. Shock, hesitation, but he masked it quickly. Maya, don't be dramatic. She let out a bitter laugh. He still didn't get it. This isn't drama, Damian. She met his gaze, her voice steady despite the ache in her chest. This is me realizing I deserve better. For a second, just a second, she thought she saw regret in his expression. But it was too late. Maya turned around and walked toward the door, her heels clicking against the marble floor. She didn't look back, not once. She wouldn't give him the satisfaction. The beginning of a new path. As she stepped into the elevator, a single tear escaped down her cheek, but she wiped it away, her jaw tightening. She wouldn't cry for him anymore. Damian Carter had made his choice. Now she would make hers. Maya Brooks walked out of Carter Enterprises with her head held high, but her heart felt like it had been shattered into a million pieces. She had given Damian everything, her loyalty, her love, her trust, and he had thrown her aside like she was nothing. But if there was one thing Maya refused to be, it was a victim. She wouldn't let heartbreak define her. A new beginning. The first few weeks after leaving Carter Enterprises were the hardest. The pain of betrayal was suffocating, but Maya knew that drowning in misery wouldn't change anything. She had spent years proving her worth in a company that never truly valued her. Now it was time to prove it to herself. She took every skill, every lesson she had learned from working alongside Damian, and poured it into something of her own. With the little savings she had and the connections she had built over the years, Maya took a bold step. She started her own consulting firm. The beginning was brutal. Investors hesitated to take a chance on her. Competitors dismissed her. She was a woman, young, and a former secretary. No one believed she could build something powerful. But Maya Brooks wasn't just anyone. Building an empire. She worked tirelessly, day and night, strategizing, networking, and making bold moves in the business world. Her intelligence and determination were unmatched. She secured her first deal within 3 months, a struggling tech company that needed fresh ideas. With Maya's leadership, the company saw rapid growth, and soon other businesses started noticing her. Word spread. Clients lined up. Investors who once ignored her came back, eager to work with the rising powerhouse that was Maya Brooks. She expanded quickly, hiring a strong team, bringing in experts, and making calculated risks. Her company became one of the fastest-growing consulting firms in the industry, a name that rivaled Carter Enterprises. 2 years later, Maya Brooks was no longer just a name. She was a force. Her business had not only grown, it had flourished. Her company, Brooks Consulting, was now a direct competitor of Carter Enterprises. Major clients who once worked exclusively with Damian's firm were now choosing Maya instead. She wasn't just making money, she was making history. Business magazines featured her on covers, headlines praising her as the woman who defied the odds. Interviews called her the CEO who built an empire from the ashes of betrayal. And the best part, she had done it all without Damian Carter. The world noticed, and so did Damian. At first, Damian didn't take Maya's rise seriously. He had underestimated her. But when Carter Enterprises started losing clients to Brooks Consulting, when Maya was being named in the same breath as the biggest CEOs in the country, that was when he felt the impact. One night, as Damian sat in his high-rise office, staring at a news article about Maya's latest billion-dollar deal, a strange feeling settled in his chest. Regret. Maya Brooks, the woman he had dismissed, the woman he had betrayed, was now his biggest competition. She had risen from the ashes, and this time, she was untouchable. Damian Carter had it all, or so he thought. His wedding to Olivia Kingston was the event of the year, covered by every major media outlet. The perfect billionaire couple, the ultimate power duo. But behind the dazzling headlines and glamorous photos, their marriage was nothing like he had imagined. A loveless union. From the moment they exchanged vows, Damian began to see Olivia for who she truly was. She wasn't the devoted partner he had once fantasized about. She was cold, entitled, and obsessed with her image. She spent her days shopping, attending charity galas, not because she cared about the causes, but because she wanted to be photographed in the finest designer gowns. Every moment of their marriage felt like a publicity stunt. "Damian, you have to attend the gala next weekend," Olivia said one evening, lounging on their luxurious couch, scrolling through her phone. He barely looked up from his glass of whiskey. "I have work," she scoffed. "Work? You own the damn company. You can make time for your wife." His wife. The words felt empty. Regret begins to haunt him. At first, Damian ignored the uneasy feeling in his chest. He told himself he had made the right choice. Olivia came from power and influence. Their marriage strengthened his empire. But as the weeks turned into months, his regret became unbearable. The late nights at the office weren't just about work anymore. They were an escape. He found himself sitting alone in his penthouse, staring at nothing, feeling an emptiness he couldn't explain. Then he started thinking about Maya. He remembered the way she used to bring him coffee, the exact way he liked it, without him ever asking. He remembered her laughter, warm, genuine, not forced for the cameras. He remembered the way she looked at him, not as a billionaire, not as a CEO, but as a man, and it hit him like a punch to the gut. He had thrown away the only woman who had ever truly loved him. A marriage of convenience, not love. One night after another exhausting gala, Damian loosened his tie and sat at the bar in their penthouse. Olivia walked in, looking flawless as ever, her diamond necklace shimmering under the soft lights. "I saw the reports today," she said, pouring herself a glass of champagne. Your company lost another client. Guess who they went to? Damian's jaw tightened. He didn't need her to say it. Brooks Consulting. Maya. Olivia smirked, swirling her drink. I don't know why you're so surprised. She was always ambitious. You really thought she'd stay your little assistant forever? Something about the way she said it set him off. You don't know anything about her, Damian muttered. Olivia raised an eyebrow. Oh? Do you? He looked away, gripping his glass tighter. Did he? He had known Maya in his arms, in his bed, but had he ever truly known her heart? And now it was too late. The woman he lost. As the months passed, Damian found himself following Maya's success in secret. Every time he saw her name on a Forbes list, every time he saw a headline about her company winning another contract over his regret deepened. She was thriving without him. She had built herself up from nothing and now stood on a pedestal he could never reach. And the worst part? She didn't look back. Maya Brooks had walked out of his life, and she had never once tried to return. And that realization shattered him. The grand ballroom of the elite business summit glittered with crystal chandeliers in the presence of the world's most powerful entrepreneurs. It was an event meant for business moguls, not secretaries. And yet there she was. A different Maya Brooks entered the room like a queen stepping onto her throne. Her stunning emerald green gown hugged her curves perfectly, her brown skin glowing under the soft lights. Every step she took radiated power, confidence, and something else. Something Damian had never seen in her before. Independence. She was no longer the woman who used to take notes in his office, who used to bring him coffee, who used to wait for his love. She was his equal now. No, she was his competition. Damian felt his breath catch in his throat as he watched her greet high-profile investors with ease. They didn't see a former secretary. They saw a powerhouse. And suddenly, for the first time in his life, Damian Carter felt small. A tense meeting. He didn't even realize his feet were moving until he was standing just a few steps away from her. Maya. At the sound of his voice, she turned, her eyes meeting his. But there was no trace of the love that once filled them. No warmth, no longing. Just a cool, unreadable gaze. Mr. Carter, she greeted with a polite smile, her voice smooth, professional, distant. His stomach twisted. She had always called him by his first name. Hearing her address him so formally now felt like a slap. You look... He hesitated, his words failing him. She looked breathtaking, but he couldn't say that. Not when his wife was standing just a few feet away watching them. Different. Maya tilted her head slightly, amusement flickering in her eyes. So do you. Damian wasn't sure what she meant until he saw his own reflection in the mirrored wall behind her. He looked tired, stressed, unhappy. Nothing like the powerful CEO he once was. She, on the other hand, had never looked better. The sting of realization. Olivia soon appeared at Damian's side, her manicured nails curling around his arm possessively. Darling, aren't you going to introduce me? She asked sweetly, though her eyes held something sharp. Maya's lips curved into a polite smile. No need. I know who you are. There was no malice in her voice, no bitterness. She had moved on. And that hurt Damian more than anything. For months he had lived with regret. He had told himself that Maya still thought about him, that maybe she still loved him the way he realized he loved her. But tonight proved him wrong. She wasn't broken. She wasn't waiting for him. She was thriving without him. And for the first time, Damian Carter felt the sting of what it truly meant to lose. Maya's last words. As the event went on, Damian found himself unable to focus. His eyes kept drifting to Maya, watching how effortlessly she charmed everyone in the room. At the end of the night, as guests began leaving, he saw her standing alone on the balcony, gazing out at the city skyline. He approached her, his heart pounding. Maya, can we talk? She didn't turn around immediately. When she finally did, she looked at him with calm eyes, not angry, not bitter, just free. There's nothing left to talk about, Damian, she said softly. He swallowed hard. She raised a hand, stopping him. You made your choice. Her voice was gentle but firm. And I made mine. With that, she turned and walked away, leaving him standing there drowning in the weight of his own regret. Damian Carter had always been a man who controlled everything. His business, his relationships, even the emotions of the people around him. But tonight, for the first time, he felt completely powerless. As he stood in the middle of the grand ballroom, his eyes never left Maya. She was no longer the quiet, obedient secretary who used to wait for his attention. She was a force, powerful, respected, and completely out of his reach. He watched as influential businessmen surrounded her, their admiration evident in their expressions. Some leaned in, captivated by her words, while others laughed at something she said, their eyes filled with intrigue. And Damian? He was nothing more than an outsider looking in. Damian's growing frustration. His hands clenched into fists as he watched one man in particular, a billionaire investor from London, place a hand on the small of Maya's back. She didn't push him away. She didn't flinch. She smiled. Damian's chest tightened. He had once been the only man she smiled at that way. Jealousy burned through him, but he had no right to feel it. Not after what he had done. A cold and distant Maya. Determined, he walked toward her, his heart pounding. He had to talk to her. He had to fix this. Maya, he called, stepping beside her. She turned to him, her expression unreadable. Mr. Carter, she greeted smoothly, just like she had before. Formal, emotionless. He hated it. Ignoring the other men, he leaned in slightly. Can we talk? Alone. Maya studied him for a moment before offering him a polite smile, the kind of smile people gave to strangers. I'm busy, she replied simply, before turning back to her conversation as if he were invisible. Damian's jaw tightened. He wasn't used to being dismissed, especially not by her, seeing her through new eyes. For years, he had been the one in control. He had been the one with the power to make or break her career, to give or take away his affection. Now, she was the one with the power. She didn't need him anymore. She didn't look at him with love or longing, and that realization shattered something inside of him. The pain of regret. Damian took a step back, watching as Maya continued laughing and talking with the powerful men around her. She was glowing, thriving, completely unfazed by his presence. She had moved on, and he was left standing there, feeling the weight of his mistakes crushing him. For the first time in his life, Damian Carter realized what true loss felt like, and it was unbearable. Damian Carter sat in his luxurious penthouse, his mind clouded with thoughts of Maya. No matter how much he tried to focus on work, his heart and mind were consumed by regret. Maya had moved on, risen in power, and now stood as his equal, or perhaps even higher. Meanwhile, his marriage to Olivia had turned into nothing more than a business arrangement. There was no love, no warmth, only expectations and obligations. Olivia was everything society deemed perfect for a billionaire's wife. Glamorous, well-connected, and ruthless. But behind the perfect image, she was controlling, manipulative, and dangerously possessive. And she had noticed the change in Damian. He barely spoke to her. He was always distracted, and whenever he thought she wasn't looking, his eyes were filled with longing for another woman. The discovery. Olivia wasn't stupid. She had spent her entire life in the upper class, where deception and betrayal were as common as luxury cars and designer gowns. She knew when a man's heart was elsewhere. Determined to uncover the truth, Olivia did what she did best. She took matters into her own hands. She hired a private investigator, instructing him to dig deep into Damian's past. She wanted to know if there had been another woman before her, one who still had his heart. It didn't take long. The investigator returned with everything Olivia needed. Photos, emails, hotel records. Maya Brooks, Damian's secretary, his former lover. The woman he had once thrown away, but now couldn't stop chasing. Olivia's rage. Olivia's blood boiled as she stared at the photos. Damian had never looked at her the way he looked at Maya. She gritted her teeth, her hands shaking with rage. She had married a billionaire, but she was nothing more than his second choice. And Olivia Kingston was no one's second choice. Public humiliation. She didn't confront Damian in private. No, that would be too merciful. Instead, she planned her revenge where it would hurt him the most. in front of the entire world. During a high-profile charity gala, with the media, business elites, and celebrities watching, Olivia took the stage. With a fake smile, she held up a stack of documents, the proof of Damian's affair. "I want to take this moment to thank my dear husband," she announced, her voice dripping with venom, "for showing me that even billionaires can be fools." The crowd fell silent. Cameras flashed. People leaned in, eager for the drama. Damian, standing among the guests, felt a chill run down his spine. "I married Damian thinking I was his one and only," Olivia continued, her expression darkening. "But imagine my surprise when I found out that I was just a replacement, a poor substitute for a woman he never truly let go of." Gasps echoed through the room. Whispers filled the air. Damian clenched his fists. "Olivia." "Oh, don't try to deny it," she interrupted. She turned to the audience, holding up the damning photos. "Meet Maya Brooks, the woman my husband still dreams about." A massive screen lit up behind her, displaying images of Damian and Maya together. Secret meetings, intimate gestures, undeniable proof of their past affair. The entire world saw the truth. The fall of Damian Carter. The media exploded. Within minutes, social media was flooded with the scandal. Billionaire Damian Carter exposed. Damian Carter cheated on his wife with his secretary. The rise and fall of a CEO, betrayal and regret. Olivia wasn't done. She took the microphone one last time. "And as for me, I refuse to stay married to a man who doesn't even know what he wants." With that, she pulled out divorce papers and dropped them onto the stage for everyone to see. Damian's world came crashing down. He had lost Maya. Now he was losing his marriage, his reputation, and soon, his empire. And it was all his own fault. For the first time in his life, Damian Carter knew what it felt like to be truly powerless. The scandal had destroyed his carefully built empire. His board of directors was questioning his leadership. Investors were pulling back, and his company's stocks had taken a brutal hit. The once admired billionaire was now the subject of tabloid headlines, mocked and ridiculed. His marriage to Olivia was officially over. She had walked away with half of his fortune and even more of his dignity. But none of that mattered, because the greatest loss of all was Maya, the woman he had betrayed, the woman he had loved, the woman who was now more powerful than he had ever imagined. Damian had always thought of himself as the man in control, the one who held all the power. But now, he was the one left chasing, swallowing his pride. For days he hesitated. Would she even see him? Would she laugh in his face? Would she slam the door on him the way he had once turned his back on her? But there was no choice. He had lost everything else. He couldn't lose her too. So Damian did something he never thought he would do. He swallowed his pride and went to her. Maya's success. When he arrived at Maya's office, he felt a bitter irony settle in his chest. Carter Enterprises was no longer the most powerful company in the industry. Maya Brooks had built her own empire, one that was now rising higher than his. The woman he had once dismissed as just a secretary was now a force greater than he could have ever imagined. And she no longer needed him. Face to face. After years. The moment he entered her office, Maya's assistant looked surprised. "Mr. Carter, Ms. Brooks doesn't take unexpected visitors." Damian clenched his fists, hating how the tables had turned. He was the one waiting now. "I need to see her," he said, his voice raw. "Just for a moment." After a long hesitation, the assistant nodded. "Wait here." Minutes passed, each second feeling like a lifetime. And then, she walked in. Maya Brooks, the woman who had once looked at him with love and admiration, now regarded him with cold indifference. She was stunning, confident, unshaken, and when their eyes met, Damian felt a pang of regret so deep it nearly crushed him. His desperate plea. For a long moment she didn't say anything, just stared at him, her arms crossed, waiting. He cleared his throat, feeling nervous for the first time in his life. "Maya," his voice cracked, but he forced himself to continue. Why are you here, Damian?" she interrupted, her tone sharp. "Haven't you humiliated me enough?" The weight of his sins pressed down on him. "I made a mistake," he admitted, his voice filled with raw desperation. The biggest mistake of my life. Maya's eyes didn't soften. Which one? She asked bitterly. Betraying me? Choosing Olivia? Or thinking I would always be beneath you? Damian flinched. He deserved that. I was a fool, he confessed. I thought love was a weakness. I thought status and wealth mattered more. But none of it means anything without you. For the first time, emotion flickered in her gaze. I never meant to hurt you, Maya, he whispered, stepping closer. I was selfish. I was blind. And I lost the only thing that ever truly mattered. She didn't move. He took a shaky breath. I love you. The words hung in the air. For years he had denied them, pushed them away, buried them under arrogance and ambition. But now he would give anything, everything, to make her believe them. Maya's cold response. She stared at him for a long, agonizing moment. Then she exhaled a bitter laugh. Love? She repeated. You say you love me now, Damian? After throwing me away like I was nothing? He winced. I was wrong. Yes, you were, she said, stepping closer, her gaze sharp. And now that you've lost everything, now that Olivia is gone, now that the world has turned against you, suddenly you remember me? His heart clenched. It's not like that, Maya, he pleaded. I swear. You're not here for love, she cut him off. You're here because I won. Damian felt his breath catch. You never truly loved me, she continued, her voice strong and unwavering. You just never thought I would rise high enough to stand above you. Her words hit harder than any public humiliation Olivia had ever thrown at him, because they were the truth. Her final words. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The tension in the room was suffocating. Then Maya took a deep breath. I don't hate you, Damian, she said, her voice calm but firm. I don't even pity you. She stepped past him, her heels clicking against the marble floor. She was done with him. And just before she walked out of the office, she turned over her shoulder and gave him one final, crushing sentence. I loved you once, Damian, but I will never make the mistake of loving you again. Then she was gone, leaving Damian Carter standing there, a broken man in the ruins of his own mistakes. And for the first time in his life, he knew he had lost. Maya Brooks had spent years waiting for Damian Carter's love. She had loved him when he was kind. She had loved him when he was cold. She had loved him even when he had shattered her heart and chosen another woman over her. But that woman, the one who once waited, hoped, and suffered in silence, no longer existed. Now she was a force to be reckoned with, a woman who commanded power rather than begging for love. And as she stood before Damian, watching the regret in his eyes, she knew one thing for certain. His love had come too late. A moment of silence. The air between them was heavy, thick with unsaid words. Damian's eyes searched hers, desperation evident in his gaze. Maya, he whispered, his voice raw. Please. But Maya didn't move, didn't soften. Instead, she lifted her chin, standing tall, unshaken. I spent years loving you, Damian, she said finally, her voice steady. I gave you my heart, my loyalty, my everything. She took a step closer, and for a brief moment, Damian thought she might forgive him. But then, she smiled, a small, knowing smile. One that held power, not pain. And that's when Damian knew. He had lost her forever. The truth he refused to see. You only want me now because I walked away, Maya continued, her voice sharp but calm. Because I became more than you ever imagined I could be. Damian swallowed hard, shame burning in his chest. That's not true, he insisted. I loved you even before. No, she interrupted, her eyes flashing. If you had truly loved me, you never would have made me beg for your attention. You never would have thrown me aside for Olivia. Her words hit him like a punch to the gut. I was nothing more than a convenience to you, Damian, she said bitterly, until I became competition. And suddenly he saw the truth. She wasn't just the woman he had lost. She was the woman he could never deserve again. Power versus love. Damian ran a hand through his hair, frustration written all over his face. Maya, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, he admitted, but I swear to you, my feelings are real. They always have been. Maya exhaled slowly. For the first time, her expression softened. Not with love, but understanding. I don't doubt that you have feelings for me, Damian, she said. But love? Real love? She shook her head. You never fought for me. And now that I don't need you, now that I've built something of my own, suddenly you remember how much I meant to you? She let out a small, humorless laugh. You don't love me, Damian. You love the idea of me. Damian's heart pounded. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. She was supposed to forgive him. She was supposed to take him back. But Maya wasn't that woman anymore. A choice that changes everything. Maya took a deep breath and made her decision. I still have feelings for you, she admitted, her voice quiet but firm. And maybe a part of me always will. Damian's heart lifted slightly, hope flickering in his chest. But then, she stepped back. I deserve better than a man who only realizes my worth after he's lost everything, she said. I deserve someone who chooses me first. Not when it's convenient. Not when it's too late. Damian's stomach dropped. Maya? No, Damian, she cut him off. This time I'm choosing myself. And with that, she turned and walked away. Not because she was weak, but because she had finally realized her own power. And for Damian Carter, there was nothing more painful than knowing he had lost the best thing that had ever happened to him, forever. Maya Brooks didn't look back. As she walked out of Damian Carter's life for the final time, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not heartbreak, not regret, just peace. Damian stood frozen, his world crumbling as he watched her disappear into the night. He wanted to chase after her, to fall at her feet and beg for another chance. But deep down he knew the truth. She was gone. And this time, it was forever. Maya's unstoppable rise months passed, and Maya's empire continued to soar. Her company, Brooks International, became one of the most powerful names in the business world. She graced the covers of Forbes, Vogue, and Entrepreneur magazines. Her name was spoken with admiration and respect in every boardroom. She was no longer just Damian Carter's former secretary. She was Maya Brooks, the woman who built an empire from nothing, and the world worshipped her. Damian's fall from grace. Meanwhile, Damian's life fell apart. His divorce with Olivia had turned into a public spectacle. The media ripped him apart, labeling him a fool for betraying the one woman who had truly loved him. Carter Enterprises suffered as shareholders lost confidence in him. He was once a man who controlled everything, but now he was powerless. And worst of all, everywhere he went, he saw Maya's face, on billboards, in magazines, on television. She was everywhere, flourishing, untouchable, and he was just a man drowning in regret. The world belongs to her now. One night, Damian sat alone in his penthouse, drinking in the darkness. The silence was suffocating. For the first time in his life, he felt what it was like to have nothing. No Maya, no love. Just a hollow existence filled with what-ifs. And then he saw her. On the TV screen, Maya stood on a grand stage, accepting the Businesswoman of the Year award. She wore a sleek black gown, her confidence radiating through the screen. The audience roared for her. She had done what no one believed she could. She had won. The final blow. The interviewer asked, "What is the secret to your success?" Maya smiled, a smile that was powerful, unshaken, and victorious. "My success," she repeated, "it comes from knowing my worth, from understanding that a woman is powerful when she chooses herself, when she stops waiting to be chosen." Damian clenched his glass, his heart breaking all over again, because that was the moment he knew. He had never deserved her, and he never would.